Dear student, today we will talk about the poem Sohrab and Rustam by Matthew Arnold. This poem is a part of the syllabus of BA Part 2nd, Paper 1st. Before discussing any poem, first we will talk about the poet Matthew Arnold. We will discuss this poem into two parts. In the second part, we will attempt a critical appreciation of the poem. And in this video, we will talk about the poet and about the poem. Matthew Arnold, 1822 to 1888, son of Thomas Arnold. He received his university education at Oxford. There, he developed a close friendship with Arthur U. Clough. He served as inspector of schools for 35 years. This job gave him immense exposure to social life in England, as his primary task was to travel extensively and observe as well social life in England as his primary task was to travel extensively and observe as well as collect first hand information about social conditions of England. This exposure became the source of raw material for his later works. For 10 years, he was professor of poetry at Oxford from 1857 to 1867. His early poems were published in 1849, but gradually Arnold turned increasingly to prose, writing essays on literary topics, education, and social issues that established him as a leading critic of the day. He also made attempts to secure the improvement of education, particularly secondary education, because he was the inspector of a school for 35 years. His poetry has fine classical qualities like perfect lucidity of expression, cleanness of style, and the absence of far-fetched images and involved construction. His important works include Tyrus, Rugby Chapel, essays in criticism, and culture and anarchy. This was the introduction of Matthew Arnold. Now we will talk about the poem Sohrab and Rustam. Sohrab and Rustam is a blank verse poem, and here it is an extract from Matthew Arnold's long narrative poem Sohrab and Rustam. The poem that is described in your syllabus, it is a part of this long poem. In this poem, Arnold has recreated the story originally written by Persian poet Firdausi. The theme of the poem is highly tragic. The poet portrays the impact of a sad and gloomy situation which occurs unexpectedly. The message conveyed through this narrative poem is that fate is all powerful and it is beyond the capacity of the individual to know how it works. That fate is powerful and it is beyond the capacity of the individual to know how it works. The poet highlights the finite nature of man's capacities and the infinite stretch of destiny which unfolds much more than man can imagine. The poem opens with Sohrab lying wounded with his life gradually escaping from his grasp. His father Rustam stands by him as he oscillates between life and death. The struggle ends and Sohrab lies motionless in the desert with a broken and distressed Rustam by his side. This contrast is symbolic of the fact that nature goes on its way without any regard to the personal tragedy of any person. Not only this, even the armies on both sides resume the war in a routine manner. In the concluding part, the poet shifts his focus from Rustam and Sohrab and depicts the beauty of nature originating from the plateau of Pamir. The river Oxus flows majestically in a way path till at last its waves merge with the oral aerial sea, its final destination. The movement of the river is in fact an implied comment upon the nature of the life. Life also originates and after completing its course, like the river, it has to ultimately merge with the finite. Thus, the poem reaches philosophical heights and explores the nature of mortality. So, this was a brief of Matthew Arnold's poem Sohrab and Rustam. In the next video, we will discuss a critical appreciation of the poem Sohrab and Rustam.